Major League Baseball unbans Pete Rose, meaning he will now be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Ah, great. Just what we need in these trying times. A decision made that will come with absolutely no controversy or fighting.
What the
So a pretty historic moment just happened where two of the most controversial players in baseball history just got unbanned along with several others. But there's a catch. They all have one thing in common. Really quick, if you're part of the 51% of viewers not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button if you enjoy the videos, as Pete Rose was banned in 1989, so it's been over 35 years, and the iconic Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was banned in 1921, so when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, for the same reason Pete Rose was banned for. Gambling. Shoeless Joe and 7 other Chicago White Sox players were banned after being exposed of throwing the 1919 World Series for money, losing on purpose, although Joe is actually someone people found to be innocent because, well, he was acquitted by a judge in a criminal trial, yet the MLB commissioner banned him anyway. So it was always a controversial thing with Joe getting banned. He also played well during that World Series, which of course would imply he wasn't trying to lose on purpose. And then Pete Rose, the man who has the record for most hits in baseball history, was banned for betting. And this video is brought to you by I'm just kidding, no. So allegedly with Pete Rose, he didn't bet against himself like the infamous White Sox situation. When he was manager, so after his playing days, that was at least the original thing that came out. He bet on his team, the Reds, to win. That's the story that is largely believed to be true. And even though it is wrong betting at all when you're playing or a part of a team, it's why a lot of people think he should have been unbanned a long time ago, because he bet on himself. He didn't bet against himself and lose or do something bad on purpose. Pete himself thought he was going to be unbanned a couple of years into it, but by year 35, it was clear this was just not going to change. Well, it is now, since he's dead, and that's what everyone who was just unbanned has in common. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred basically made it that once a player is dead, they will be unbanned, in his words, because a person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game. Rose clearly never seen Pet Sematary, but okay. Now with Rose unbanned, he is now eligible to be voted into the Hall of Fame, which then begs the question, does Pete Rose belong in the Hall of Fame? It's a very layered question that I think has a simple answer, but there's so much that goes into why this is even a discussion to begin with. We obviously know about the gambling stuff as a manager, but years later it was also strongly indicated that he bet as a player too. And not only this, he lied for years about the truth. He said for 15 years that he had never placed a single bet on baseball. And in the early 2000s, the last commissioner before Rob Manfred, Bud Selig, actually gave Rose a chance to make things right, but laid down some ground rules. One of them being that he would have to admit that he bet on baseball and stop gambling and making casino appearances, which became a big part of Pete Rose's life. And I'm pretty sure my dad once got an autograph from Pete Rose in Las Vegas years ago. That place became his home. A gambling addict going to Las Vegas is like a black person entering Wakanda. He could have not been more accepted. It was basically his roots, in his blood. And he refused to stop that lifestyle years ago, or admit to betting when he was given the chance, although he did eventually do that, admit to betting in his book that came out in 2004, saying that he had gambled on baseball as the Reds manager, but he pleaded he bet only on his team to win, which comes in a play as to the argument people have that makes him not innocent, but in a far better position than the 1919 Black Sox guys. But then again, how certain are we of that claim? He denied betting for 15 years before admitting it, and also served 5 months in federal prison for submitting falsified tax returns in 1990. So this isn't exactly Mr. Rogers over here in terms of sincerity and people you can trust to tell the truth. There's also the other big black eye on Pete Rose's legacy. This is an actual thing he complained about, but there's an irony to it. Rose complained a lot that the ban prevented him from working with young hitters in minor league ballparks. Yeah, I don't think the words young and minor and Pete Rose go together historically. Hey Pete,
I hate you like I'm young.
In 1973, when Pete Rose was 32 years old, he had a relationship with a girl who was about 14 or 15. Rose acknowledged that this did happen, and his reasoning was that she was 16, or at least he thought she was. Guys, yes, I killed people, but I killed 7, not 9. Get over it. Oh, not to mention, Rose was also married with 2 children. Not that tons of other athletes are faithful men, but when you cheat on your wife with a minor, that takes the immorality of it to a whole new level, don't you think? So after all this, does Pete Rose belong in the Hall of Fame? What's my answer? Yes, I think he does, and I'll explain. The Baseball Hall of Fame, any Hall of Fame, is a historic museum in honoring the best baseball players or participants of whatever that thing is. In my eyes, all it should take to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame is to be an elite baseball player. That's it. They say the character of the player matters and factors into it all, but it doesn't. That's a lie. There are multiple players in the Hall of Fame today who were members of the KKK. There are tons of immoral people in the Hall of Fame. Players who didn't even want to take the field if the opposing side had a black player. Players in the Hall who I'm sure have hit women or cheated. Players who use steroids. We know that. And that's my point. You can't pick and choose with this stuff, which is what these morons have been doing for years. Curt Schilling was left out of the Hall of Fame because of who he supported as president and said things journalists found offensive. Despite how legendary of a pitcher he was over his long career, he can't make it because the writers don't like him. Or you don't vote Barry Bonds in because he was kind of mean to the media and took steroids, just like several other players sitting in the Hall of Fame right now also did. No, that's bullshit. Why is Barry Bonds not in the Hall of Fame? That's stupid. Let me remind you that there are literal Ku Klux Klan members in the Hall, so let's not talk about Curt Schilling and Barry Bonds when it comes to morality. Okay, you either let them all in or you don't. I don't care who they voted for. I don't care if a player was the second coming of Christ himself or Adolf Hitler's right-hand man somehow in World War II. If they were great at baseball, they should be in. Because the Hall of Fame is about everything, not just what you choose for us to see. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all a part of baseball history and meant to be taught and looked into at a museum. Which is why someone as impactful to not just baseball, but sports in America in a good way like Jackie Robinson should be in, alongside Pete Rose, who had many flaws, clearly. Some pretty irredeemable flaws. They're all impactful in their own ways. So Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame because he has the most hits in baseball history. Simple. That's it. It's not that difficult. Not because of his character. That has nothing to do with what should be factored in, clearly, like it hasn't been for a lot of other guys. His character is a stain on him, but one that you don't ignore. And it adds that much more nuance to it all, rather than just seeing a bunch of players who did good for the world off the field. It shows how some of your favorite players and people were great people, and others were not the sort of people to look up to, and it's all important to have in the museum. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Love you. Bye.